Level uppers, welcome to the final boss battle of conversational self-sabotage. Have you ever had that chilling moment in an argument where you realize you and the other person don't just disagree on opinions, you disagree on reality itself? You know with absolute certainty that they said they would call you back after their meeting. You planned your afternoon around it, but they are equally, passionately certain they said they'd call if they got a chance. It's not just a simple misunderstanding. It feels like one of you has slipped into a parallel dimension. If you've ever felt like your own memory can be a traitor, then you are in exactly the right place. We've braved the emotional storms, the neurological freakouts, and the cognitive minefields. Now, we pull it all together by exploring the ultimate plot twists, the illusion of objective truth, the dark art of gaslighting, the strategic retreat, and finally, the one actual no-kidding superpower you have to navigate this madness. This is the big reveal. So, if our brains are such unreliable narrators, what about reality itself? You think you're arguing about objective facts when you're in a difficult conversation? Oh, that's adorable. Most of the time, you're not arguing about facts at all. You're arguing about your story of the facts, a story that's been lovingly filtered, edited, and produced by your own unique, internal brand of crazy. First, let's break down the reasons our realities clash so violently. The biggest reason is what I call subjective reality and our own internal stories. This is the core idea that we're all unreliable narrators in our own epic movie. Each of us walks around with a lifetime of experiences and emotional baggage that shapes how we see any given conflict. Your past heartbreaks, that time your teacher said your drawing looked like a deformed potato, even that traumatic incident where a seagull stole your sandwich, it all gets woven into the complex meaning you assign to why your partner didn't text you back immediately. These internal narratives are powerful because, to us, they feel like the truth. And when someone else's truth clashes with yours, fireworks. This phenomenon is often called the Rashomon Effect, named after that classic Kurosawa film. But it isn't just about faulty memory. It's deeply connected to identity protection. Each person's story of an event often frames them as the rational one, the justified one, or the victimized one, thus preserving their self-concept. To admit their story is flawed, or just one version among many, can feel like admitting you are flawed. So, truth, in arguments, often takes a backseat to ego preservation. This brings us to the second source of these reality glitches, the absolute minefield of unspoken assumptions. I'm talking about the glorious human tradition of getting absolutely incandescent with rage at someone for breaking a rule you never actually told them existed. I mean, we all waltz into conversations armed with a secret rule book, right? A list of expectations for how the other person should behave and what they should already understand. You get that thought bubble, ugh, she should know I hate that sarcastic tone. But let's be real for a second. Did you ever explicitly, calmly tell her that? With words? No? Oh, okay, cool. And that's the problem. Those unvoiced assumptions are like invisible tripwires, just waiting for an unsuspecting person to stumble over them and unleash chaos. And when you combine our internal stories with our unspoken assumptions, you get the ultimate conversational cluster you-know-what. This is the world of disputed facts and a deeper dive into the Rashomon Effect. As we touched on, the name comes from that brilliant movie Rashomon, and the film's plot is the perfect metaphor for our arguments. In the movie, you witness a horrific crime, but you see it through the eyes of the bandit, the wife, the murdered samurai, and a woodcutter. Every single account is different, plausible, yet utterly contradictory. That right there, that's the DNA of pretty much every significant argument you've ever had. Facts become facts largely when we collectively agree on them. In the heat of a conflict, good luck with that. Your indisputable fact is there clear evidence of your delusional misinterpretation of events, possibly fueled by too much caffeine and an underlying personality disorder. Now this brings us to a very juicy, very provocative topic. You've heard the phrase a million times, right? Perception is reality. It sounds so deep and validating, doesn't it? like something you'd see on a profound bumper sticker. But here's the question we're going to tackle today. Is that phrase a profound universal truth, or is it a dangerous, lazy cop-out? Let's poke it with a sharp stick and find out. What if, sometimes, it's just an excuse to avoid the hard work of seeking objective truth or understanding differing viewpoints beyond just validating every single one as real? Worse, what if it becomes a tool for those in power, your boss, a manipulative partner, even a societal narrative, to impose their perception as the reality, effectively squashing yours like an insignificant bug? Think about it. If your manager says, "My perception is that you're not a team player, and since perception is reality, well, that's the reality," where does that leave you? Are you just screwed by their subjective take, regardless of your actual actions or intentions? And if everyone's perception is equally valid reality in a conflict, how do you ever resolve anything? Does it just become an irresolvable battle of whose reality is stronger, louder, or more persistent? The phrase, often intended to foster empathy, can paradoxically be weaponized to shut down legitimate challenges to harmful behavior, especially when there's a power imbalance. It can become a shield for abusers or manipulators to say, "Well, that's my reality, so you can't question it," effectively making all realities equally valid, even when one is built on distortion, denial, or outright malice. And this leads to the dark twist: gaslighting, when they systematically demolish your reality and build their own twisted funhouse in its place. This isn't just about two people having different, equally valid perceptions. This is psychological warfare. Gaslighting is when someone deliberately and systematically messes with your sense of reality, making you doubt your own memory, your sanity, and your very perception of events, all for the insidious purpose of gaining power and control over you. It is the ultimate malicious exploitation of subjective reality. It's not just having a different perception, it's a calculated, often brutal campaign to overwrite your internal reality, essentially staging a psychological coup d'etat within your own mind. The tactics are insidious. They'll deny things they said or did even if you have proof. They'll contradict your memories. They'll trivialize your feelings by telling you you're too sensitive or overreacting. They'll question your memory with phrases like, "You're imagining things, that never happened," or even, "You're the one who said that, not me." They do this so persistently and convincingly that you start to wonder if you're the crazy one. Gaslighters are masters at exploiting your natural human tendency to trust, especially someone you care about, your desire for consistency, and your own capacity for self-doubt. They turn your own cognitive processes against you, making their distorted version of events the only reality you feel you can trust. They even use the fundamental attribution error against you. Your perfectly normal reactions to their abuse, your frustration, your tears, your anger, are reframed as proof of your instability or flawed character. They'll point at your reaction and say, "See, you are crazy, too emotional, irrational." So if our brains are wired for drama, our emotions are a chaotic mosh pit, our thinking is riddled with biases, and our perception of reality is as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake, is it any wonder we try to avoid these conversations? This brings us to what I call the fine art of dodging. Let's be honest, most of us would rather undergo a root canal performed by a slightly tipsy squirrel than willingly wade into a difficult conversation. But why? What makes us run screaming internally or, hey, sometimes externally, from the mere thought of confrontation? Let's look at the usual suspects, your go-to excuses for bailing. First up is the most seductive reason of all, the siren song of short-term comfort. This is that little voice in your head that whispers, "Ah, sweet, blissful avoidance. Why deal with the emotional explosion today when you can just let it fester, mutate, and grow into an unstoppable multi-headed resentment hydra that will inevitably destroy everything you hold dear, next month?" It's the psychological equivalent of hitting the snooze button on a ticking time bomb. Then you have the classic excuse, the "I'm just not good at this" crutch. This is all about a lack of skills, or at least a perceived lack of confidence. The internal monologue goes something like this. Look, I want to be the person who can calmly articulate my complex emotional needs and negotiate a great outcome. But the second the pressure is on, my brain short-circuits. My vocabulary devolves into a series of awkward seal noises and panicked hand gestures. So, how about we just do this never? Never works for me. But this isn't just about not knowing the right words. It's often a deep-seated fear of being unable to manage the intense emotional and physiological chaos that floods our system. And you remember our friends from part 2, right? That whole fight, flight, freeze, and fawn fiesta? That's what we're really afraid of. And of course, we can't forget the ghosts of arguments past. I'm talking about our past negative experiences that come back to haunt us. We've all got a story like this, right? Remember that one time you tried to talk things out, maybe with Uncle Omid, about his political views at a big family get-together? And how did that end? With tears, a ruined pumpkin pie, a few slammed doors, and your prize-winning begonia getting accidentally catapulted into the neighbor's yard? Yeah, that emotional scar tissue is real. Past battles lost make future skirmishes terrifying. Another big one is that paralyzing terror that you might actually make things worse. This is the fear of escalation. It's the feeling that trying to talk things out is the conversational equivalent of trying to defuse a bomb by enthusiastically poking it with a pointy stick while juggling flaming torches. The fear that your intervention will just pour gasoline on the fire can feel so overwhelmingly real that doing nothing seems like the only sane option. And honestly, this isn't always irrational. If your past experience has shown that the other person is a master of escalation or simply incapable of constructive dialogue, this fear might actually be a pretty rational assessment of risk. And finally, we have the last and maybe the heaviest reason for avoidance. This is when you put on the heavy cloak of learned helplessness. This is what happens after you feel like you've already tried everything. You've tried talking. You've tried reasoning. You have used all the I feel statements the books told you to use until you were blue in the face, and still, nothing ever changes. So you finally get to that point where you just say, you know what, screw it. This is pointless. Pass the chips and let's just watch the world burn, one passive-aggressive sigh at a time. After enough failed attempts, your brain just throws in the towel. Now, here's where it gets provocative. Is conflict avoidance always cowardice, or can strategic disengagement be a Zen power move? You know, the prevailing cultural narrative practically screams at us, right? Face your conflicts, don't be an avoider, be brave. And look, that's not wrong. Consistently burying your head in the sand while important issues fester is generally a recipe for disaster. But let's ask a provocative question here. What if some battles, some arguments, some people are just not worth the emotional shrapnel? Is walking away or choosing not to engage always a sign of weakness? Or could it sometimes be the sanest, most strategic, and most self-preserving option on the table? Think about what we could call adaptive non-engagement. Sometimes, choosing not to dive into the conversational Thunderdome is a perfectly rational choice based on a quick internal cost-benefit analysis. If the argument is about whether it's acceptable to fully recline your seat on an airplane or who truly has the rights to the middle armrest, maybe, just maybe, strategically disengaging is simply an act of preserving your precious sanity and limited emotional bandwidth. The always face conflict mantra often ignores crucial context, like power dynamics. If confronting your tyrannical boss who holds your career in their hands is likely to result in professional suicide with zero positive outcome, is bravery really the smart play? Consider emotional self-preservation. Is it genuinely avoidance, or are you just refusing to repeatedly set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially if that someone else seems to enjoy the bonfire a little too much? And what about tactical avoidance in relationships or negotiations? Sometimes letting things cool down, allowing emotions to settle, or waiting for a more opportune moment isn't about dodging the issue, it's about strategy. You don't always have to RSVP yes to every single argument you're invited to. Choosing your battles and your timing can be a sign of wisdom, not weakness. So, the next time you feel that urge to flee, ask yourself, am I running from a necessary conversation that could lead to growth? Or am I wisely sidestepping an unproductive, potentially damaging, or utterly pointless emotional black hole? The answer isn't always simple. Which brings us to the grand, slightly anticlimactic, but incredibly important punchline. So, after that whirlwind tour through the darkest corners of your conflict-addled psyche, your brain's a prehistoric drama queen, your emotions are a mosh pit, and your perception of reality is as reliable as a chocolate teapot in a heat wave, feeling enlightened yet? Or just mildly horrified? So what is the superpower? After all that, what's the big secret? It's this: awareness. That's right, awareness is the superpower. And don't worry, no cape is required, though hopefully it leads to fewer tears. Maybe. Here's the kicker, the big reveal, the thing that this entire psychological circus has been leading up to. Understanding this internal chaos is the first giant crucial leap toward not letting it run your life and systematically dismantle your relationships. That's it. That's the foundational secret. There's immense power in simply naming your demons. Just knowing that fundamental attribution error is a legitimate psychological phenomenon and not just you being a uniquely judgmental bastard, or that your amygdala hijack is a real thing, gives you a fighting chance. You can't begin to fix, manage, or navigate what you don't even understand is happening. Awareness pulls these unconscious processes out of the shadows and into the light where you can actually look at them, poke them, and maybe even laugh at their absurdity. Now, if you've been paying attention, you'll realize we haven't given you a single how-to tip for your next difficult conversation. And that was entirely on purpose. Because before you can wield any conversational tools effectively, you need to understand the terrain you're operating on. And that terrain is the wild, unpredictable landscape of human psychology. You had to survive this psychological boot camp first. Consider it your initiation. And here's a little reassurance with a twist of our signature dark humor. You are not uniquely broken. You are not a special snowflake of conversational incompetence. You are just spectacularly, hilariously, and at times tragically human. We all are. The goal here isn't to transform you into some kind of emotionless, conflict-resolving robot who navigates every disagreement with the cool precision of a bomb disposal expert. The goal is to help you become a slightly more self-aware human being who maybe, just maybe, cries a little less in the office bathroom after a friendly chat with their boss about their opportunities for growth. The true level up isn't about eliminating conflict or emotions. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship to them through understanding. This awareness itself is therapeutic and empowering even before you learn a single new skill. And by demystifying these complex psychological gremlins with a dose of humor and relatable examples, we hope we've already started to dial down that anxiety just a notch. All right, level uppers, what a ride. We've waded through emotional dumpster fires, peeked at your brain's prehistoric panic buttons, and collectively called out the common wisdom making your difficult conversations worse. Seriously, though, understanding this psychological underbelly is the critical first step to not letting these irrational processes control you. So level up your awareness, be a little kinder to your own wonderfully flawed brain, and catch us in the next video where I promise actual, tangible tools to help you navigate this beautiful mess. If this series resonated and made you awkwardly recognize yourself, you're officially human. Please show your support for the channel. First, smash that like button. Then, absolutely subscribe for more Level Up Your Life. Think of us as your hilariously dysfunctional support group with actual psychological grounding. And finally, share this series with anyone who needs it, or just new argument ammo. Critically, I want to hear from you, so comment below. What's your most cringeworthy conversation blow-up? Your personal nemesis cognitive bias? or your biggest catastrophizing moment that turned out fine. Don't be shy. Your trauma is our content, and sharing normalizes the struggle. Until then, try not to start any major psychological wars, or at least take really good notes if you do. Stay curious, level uppers.